This story is titled, My Brother-in-Law Dropped a Bombshell on My Wife. He's in love with her. Hi, everyone. Before we dive, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and make sure you never miss out on amazing video. Alright, let us get started. My brother-in-law, the man married to my sister, recently dropped a bombshell that blew up our entire family. He told my wife that he was in love with her. That one confession kicked off a string of horrifying revelations none of us were prepared for. It started just yesterday. Out of nowhere, he asked my wife if she could meet him for lunch. Said he had something important to talk about. When she told me, she looked confused more than anything else. Do you think this is about my sister? She asked, eyebrows knitted. Maybe they're having problems, and he just wants a woman's perspective. The whole thing felt strange. He'd never reached out to her like that before. Sure, he texted her sometimes, but it was always about family stuff, the kind of things you wouldn't think twice about. We're a pretty close-knit group, so none of it ever raised any red flags. I shrugged it off. Go see what he wants, I told her. She agreed and planned to meet him at a cafe near her office. The next morning, while she was getting dressed, she brought it up again. Still not sure what this is about, she said, a little nervous now. It's probably nothing, I said, trying to reassure her. Just hear him out. If it's something serious, we'll figure it out together. So she went. The cafe was busy, which helped her relax. She got there a little early and picked a spot by the window. He showed up a few minutes later, looking uneasy, fidgeting more than usual. They talked about the usual stuff at first. Work, the kids, just small talk. But once the food came, everything changed. He took a deep breath and jumped in. He started by telling her how beautiful she looked. At first, she assumed he was just being polite. But then he kept going. Said she lit up his life in ways he couldn't explain, that he'd never felt this way about anyone, that it had been love at first sight. I've loved you from the moment I saw you, he said. If you were mine, I'd treat you like a queen. I'd give you everything. My wife froze. She stared at him in disbelief. This man, her brother-in-law, my sister's husband, father of her 2 kids, was laying his heart out to her like they were in some kind of twisted romance. He wasn't holding back. Kept talking about how he'd admired her from afar for years, how he believed they were meant to be. She tried to cut him off, tell him he was crossing a line, but he wouldn't stop. It was like he'd rehearsed the whole speech and had to get every word out. Now let me be clear. This guy always had a good rapport with my wife. Our family spent a lot of time together. He was the guy grilling burgers at the cookout, joking around with everyone. He texted her sometimes, but it was always innocent. Updates about the kids, reminders about family plans. He even texted my mom. Nobody thought anything of it. We all trusted him. So when my wife called me, shaken and trying to piece together what had just happened, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. She didn't let him finish. She stood up, her chair scraping the floor, and walked out. She called me right away, barely able to talk through the shock. While she was still on the phone, he started texting her. First came the apologies. Said he didn't mean it. Maybe it was just infatuation. Sorry if he made her uncomfortable. But that didn't change what happened. She left work early and came home. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I told her to answer one call and put it on speaker so I could hear. He was crying. Actually crying. Begging her not to tell my sister. Said it was a mistake, that he misread her signals. Claimed they had a moment alone in our kitchen last weekend and thought she was flirting. Look, my wife is the kind of woman who doesn't take crap from anyone. She's got a sharp sense of humor, can throw jabs with the best of them. I guess, if you were really reaching, you could twist that into flirting. But this was next level. He asked if she'd told me. I said yes. I was right there on the line. He switched to begging both of us to keep it a secret. It went on like that for a while. Him pleading, us listening. Eventually, I cut in. I asked if he'd ever done this to my sister. If there had been other women. He swore on his kids' lives that it was just my wife. Just her. That was it for me. I told him I wasn't making any decisions that night, but I'd be calling him the next day. We needed to think. My wife wanted to drive straight over and tell my sister. And maybe we should have. But the thought of blowing up their marriage, hurting my nieces, it made me sick. I knew the truth had to come out. I just wasn't ready for what would come after. No matter what happened, our family was never going to be the same. I didn't care about him anymore. He tried to tear our lives apart, but I still cared about everyone else. And that made everything so much harder. She wonders now if her silence might have given him the wrong idea. My sister listens quietly, her face softening as she takes it all in. She doesn't hold my wife responsible for any of this. She knows her well enough to understand that her playful personality has never been about leading anyone on. "This isn't your fault," she says gently, and my wife just nods, though the guilt is clearly eating at her. Once they finish combing through the messages, it's obvious. There was never any flirtation, no hidden signs, no secret messages. My wife was just being her usual self, and somehow, my brother-in-law twisted that into something completely different. The weight of this realization is crushing. But at least, for now, my sister still believes in my wife. That trust hasn't been shattered. Then my sister decides to dig deeper. She grabs his MacBook and starts searching through it, her hands trembling from anger. She guesses his password, and after a couple tries, she's in. With a shaky breath, she starts digging through files, trying to find more answers. It doesn't take long before she stumbles across something disturbing. Hidden deep in a folder with a bland name are dozens of photos of my wife. They go back years. And it's not just random snapshots, these are all of her, by herself, never group shots or candid moments. My sister clicks through them, the anger draining from her face and replaced by horror. One set of photos in particular catches her attention. A few years ago, we went on a trip to the Caribbean with just the adults. It was rare, no kids, just a relaxing vacation. My wife wore a bikini for once, something she rarely does. She normally goes for something more modest, but that trip she felt confident. There were probably 50 pictures of her in that bikini, every single one taken without her knowledge. As my sister scrolls, her face goes pale. It's clear he's been taking these photos secretly for years. There's an obsessive pattern to it, and it's terrifying. "Is this restraining order territory now?" she asks quietly, her voice shaking. This whole thing has gone from inappropriate to downright creepy. There's no denying it anymore. He crossed a major line. She calls us over and shows us the photos. My wife gasps, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief. She never had a clue. Not even a hint. Now the conversation turns serious. Legal steps. Protection for the kids. A possible restraining order. All of it has to be on the table. We're all shaken. The man we once thought of as a good husband, a devoted dad, and a reliable brother-in-law has revealed a much darker side. This isn't just about misguided feelings anymore. This is something far more dangerous. But things weren't over yet. Last night, my sister decided to let him talk. She wanted to hear the full story, and she brought my wife into the call to make sure there wouldn't be any lies or half-truths. They arranged a FaceTime, and I listened in off-camera. My heart was pounding the whole time. My sister, ever meticulous, recorded the call from start to finish. From the moment the screen lit up, the tension was thick. My brother-in-law looked awful, red eyes, exhausted. He started slow, his voice barely holding steady. But then the floodgates opened. And what he confessed left us speechless. He admitted he's been obsessed with my wife for years. He said it started the day he met her. It happened during one of our early get-togethers. My sister had invited him to meet some friends, and my wife, then my girlfriend, was there. He claimed he met her before he met me. At first, he thought it was just physical attraction, a crush he'd outgrow. But as time passed and they spent more time around each other, it became something else. He said he became obsessed with her personality, her laughter, her kindness, the way she made people feel comfortable. He admitted to watching her, silently admiring her, as if he were in some secret love story. He said he tried to suppress it, told himself it was nothing, but over time, it grew worse. He started looking for excuses to be around her, texting her about little things, volunteering to help with family gatherings. He built this whole delusion in his head until it pushed him to finally confess. My sister sat there, quiet but furious, letting him speak, letting him bury himself with his own words. My wife, though, was shaken to her core. Hearing how long this had been going on was almost too much for her. When he finally stopped, silence filled the room. Then my sister spoke, calm but cold. "What made you think she'd ever leave me for you?" He floundered, talking about signals and supposed chemistry. Stuff he thought he was picking up on. That's when everything exploded. My wife and sister let him have it. Years of betrayal and disbelief poured out in raised voices. There was shouting, swearing. My wife slammed the call shut, her hands trembling. She turned to me, eyes wide, and started repeating herself. It was one-sided. I stopped her. "I know," I told her. Even if, for some reason, she found him attractive at one point, I knew she'd never cross that line. She's never played around when it comes to trust. That's something she made crystal clear early in our relationship. I'll never forget this one morning. She was getting dressed, and I was watching her, just admiring. She noticed and smiled playfully, then turned serious. "Don't ever screw this up," she said, "or you'll never see this again." She wasn't joking. Trust means everything to her. Once it's broken, there's no coming back. So I sat there thinking about my brother-in-law, and I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. I knew he had an ego, but I never imagined he thought he could actually pull this off. He had truly lost touch with reality. I spoke to my sister again after the dust settled a bit. She's focused now. Her only concern is the kids. She told me she's calling a lawyer first thing Monday. She wants to make sure her children are protected. He's completely out of touch, she told me. Her marriage is over. Her only priority now is making sure her kids don't suffer because of this. Funny thing is, he came back to the house yesterday. Not because she wanted him there, but because she can't legally keep him out yet. They're done. And I think he knows it. He walks around like he's lost something he never really had. The look in his eyes is hollow. According to the lawyer, since there's documented proof of his behavior, my sister stands a good chance at gaining full custody. And that's what she deserves. The texts, voicemails, and that creepy folder of photos made one thing painfully obvious. This wasn't just a crush. It was a full-blown obsession, and a deeply unstable one at that. The wildest part? He didn't even try to deny it. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. It was like he knew the game was up, and he was too exhausted to pretend anymore. My sister's gonna be all right, though. She's a lot tougher than she lets on, and whatever love she once had for him, it's gone. She walks around that house with purpose now, eyes forward, zero hesitation. Her whole energy's different. She's focused on her kids and moving forward. She doesn't act heartbroken. More like someone who's finally ripped off the blindfold and is done pretending. The kids, well, they don't know the full story yet, but they can feel the shift. Kids always can. They pick up on tension, on silence that doesn't feel natural. They don't know why things feel off, but they sense it. And honestly, their dad wasn't around that much anyway. Between pulling back-to-back shifts at the firehouse and crashing there overnight, he was more of a ghost than a presence. That gap, they were used to it. But when the truth hits them, it's still going to hurt. The whole family dynamic is about to shift, and nothing will be the same. My sister's ready, though. She already met with a child psychologist to help guide the kids through whatever comes next. She's not just bracing for the impact. She's preparing to be both mom and dad, the rock they'll need when everything starts to unravel. As for my brother-in-law, he's holed up in the guest room like a shadow, silent, lifeless, barely existing. It's like the reality of what he's done finally sank in, and there's no fight left in him. Just a hollow shell in a house that doesn't feel like his anymore. And yeah, it's sad, but I don't have a whole lot of sympathy left. Some buddies of mine think there's probably other women, that a guy this unhinged couldn't have been obsessing over just one person. But honestly, it really looks like it's always been just my wife. Just her. His obsession was narrow and intense, like blinders were on, and nothing else existed. After everything blew up, my wife blocked him. She needed the space, the distance. She was done. But that same night, the guy sends her an email, from a brand new account, of course. It started out like an apology, but it didn't stay that way. Not for long. He said he never got to finish what he meant to say back at the restaurant, that he had more to confess. And then, the floodgates opened. Paragraph after paragraph about all the things he adored about her. Her smile, her laugh, the way she carried herself, the way she lit up a room. It was disturbing, like reading a love letter from someone completely detached from reality. He went back to that delusion of a mutual connection, talked about sexual tension like it was undeniable, like my wife had somehow secretly returned his feelings. He twisted her kind, light-hearted nature into some made-up chemistry that only ever existed in his own mind. Then, the email took a turn. It turned into an attack on me. A whole section dedicated to how unworthy I was of her. He insulted my looks, my personality, implied I couldn't satisfy her emotionally or physically. It was low, aiming to chip away at my confidence, to make me doubt myself. But all it did was piss me off. His warped obsession had clearly eaten away at his sense of reality and twisted me into some kind of villain just because I was the man standing between him and the fantasy he'd built up in his head. I wasn't intimidated. I was resolved. More than ever, I knew I had to protect my wife and our family from this mess. We forwarded the email straight to my sister and her lawyer. Another nail in the coffin. Another piece of proof showing how unstable and dangerous his mindset really was. That email might just be the thing that gets him out of the house for good. Right now, we're just taking it day by day. The support we've gotten from friends and family has meant the world. It's been like a life raft through this storm. My wife's not okay yet, but she's getting there. She's still dealing with guilt for being too casual around someone who turned out to be dangerous. She's usually really guarded around men, especially given how much attention she gets. But she let her guard down around him because he was family. She thought that meant he was safe. Thank God she and my sister are still close. There's no resentment, no awkwardness. Just a shared understanding of the pain they've both been through. We'll get through this. It'll take time, but we'll be okay. To everyone who supported us along the way, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. My number one priority in all of this has always been my sister and her kids. What they're going through is heavy. My job now is to help them carry that weight, however I can. When you're staring down something this toxic, the only way through is fast and firm. We didn't waste time. We collected evidence, spoke the truth, and got the right people involved. Denial would have made it worse. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're all ears. And stay tuned for more real-life stories here on Vibe Tales.